When we study the history of nations, most history books begin with familiar events: empires rising and falling, great wars reshaping continents, revolutions transforming societies ensued, and new nations being born. But the Bible presents history in a very different way. In Scripture, human history is not simply a series of random events. Instead, it is portrayed as a story guided by purpose, unfolding according to a larger plan that sometimes was revealed long before the events themselves occurred. One of the most fascinating examples of this appears in a prophecy written more than 2,500 years ago. This ancient prophecy describes a powerful empire rising from the far north. This nation would not act alone. It would lead a coalition of other countries, forming a massive alliance that would eventually move south toward Israel. The invading force would be enormous, so vast that the prophet described it like a storm cloud covering the land. At first glance, this sounds like many wars that have occurred throughout history. Powerful alliances have formed before. Armies have marched across borders countless times. Yet what makes this prophecy truly remarkable is not the invasion itself, but how it ends. According to the prophecy, this overwhelming military coalition will not succeed. Instead, the invading armies will be destroyed in a dramatic and unexpected way. The destruction will happen quickly, so quickly that it will appear almost impossible by the standards of conventional warfare. In fact, the prophecy suggests that the entire invasion will collapse in a single day, leaving the world stunned by what has taken place. This prophecy was written by the biblical prophet Ezekiel, a man who lived in the 6th century before Christ. At the time Ezekiel wrote these words, the modern nations we know today did not exist. The political map of the world looked completely different. Entire civilizations that dominate today's headlines and had not even begun to form. And yet, within his prophetic visions, Ezekiel described a sequence of events that many people believe may be beginning to take shape in our modern world. What makes this prophecy particularly intriguing is the level of detail involved. Ezekiel did not simply speak about a vague future conflict. He described the direction from which the invaders would come. He listed specific regions and nations that would be part of the alliance. He even described the circumstances surrounding Israel at the time the invasion would occur. For centuries, these passages remained mysterious. Many readers viewed them as symbolic or distant future possibilities with no clear connection to real-world events. But in the modern era, several developments have caused scholars, historians, and Bible students to look again at Ezekiel's words with renewed attention. New alliances between nations are forming. Geopolitical tensions are increasing in several regions of the world. And perhaps most significantly, the nation of Israel, central to Ezekiel's prophecy, has returned to the map of the world after nearly 2,000 years of absence. These developments raise an intriguing and sometimes unsettling question. What if a prophecy written more than 2,600 years ago is not merely an ancient text, but a description of events that could unfold in our own generation? What if the words recorded by an exiled prophet in the ancient world are pointing toward a future that is now beginning to take shape? To explore that possibility, we must first understand the man who wrote this prophecy. Who was Ezekiel? What was happening in the world during his lifetime? And why do his words continue to capture the attention of so many people today? To understand the prophecy about the northern invasion, we must travel back more than 2.5 millennia to the time of the prophet Ezekiel. Ezekiel lived during one of the most turbulent periods in the history of ancient Israel. He was a Hebrew priest who lived in the early 6th century before Christ. Around the year 593 BC, Ezekiel was living far from his homeland, not by choice, but because he had been taken into exile. At that time, the powerful Babylonian Empire had conquered the kingdom of Judah. Jerusalem, the spiritual and political center of the Jewish people, had been attacked and severely weakened. Many of the inhabitants of the land, including priests, leaders, and skilled workers, were forced to leave their homes and were deported to Babylon. Ezekiel was among those exiles, living in a foreign land, surrounded by a culture very different from his own. Ezekiel began receiving a series of visions that he believed came directly from God. These visions were recorded in the biblical book that bears his name. What makes Ezekiel particularly interesting to many Bible scholars is the remarkable accuracy of several of his prophecies. One well-known example is his prophecy concerning the city of Tyre. Tyre was one of the most powerful and wealthy trading cities of the ancient Mediterranean world. Located on the coast, it dominated regional commerce and seemed almost impossible to defeat. Yet Ezekiel predicted that Tyre would eventually fall and become a place of ruins. Over the following centuries, repeated invasions and conflicts gradually brought about the city's decline, fulfilling many aspects of the prophecy. Ezekiel also spoke about the future of Egypt. Once one of the greatest empires in human history, Egypt had ruled vast territories and influenced surrounding nations for centuries. But Ezekiel predicted that Egypt would lose its dominance and would never again rise to the same level of power it once held. Over time, Egypt did indeed lose its imperial status and became one nation among many rather than a dominant global power. However, perhaps the most striking prophecy in Ezekiel's writings concerns the people of Israel themselves. Ezekiel warned that the people of Israel would be scattered among the nations of the world. Historically, this dispersion did occur. Following the destruction of Jerusalem by the Romans in AD 70, Jewish communities spread across Europe, the Middle East, North Africa, and beyond. For nearly 2,000 years, the Jewish people lived in diaspora, without a sovereign nation of their own. But Ezekiel also spoke about something extraordinary. He described a future moment when the people of Israel would return to their land and become a nation again. For centuries, this prediction seemed almost impossible. How could a people scattered across continents, lacking a homeland, a government, or political control of their territory, somehow re-establish a nation after so much time? Yet in 1948, something remarkable happened. Following the events of World War II and a series of political developments in the Middle East, the modern state of Israel was officially established. After nearly 2 millennia without a sovereign homeland, the Jewish people once again had a nation. For many students of biblical prophecy, this event stands as one of the most dramatic examples of prophecy appearing to align with modern history. Because of this, when the same prophet who now spoke about Israel's scattering and regathering also describes a future invasion involving powerful nations from the north, many readers feel compelled to take those words seriously. This brings us to an important question. If Ezekiel was describing real events in the distant future, who exactly was the powerful nation he referred to as coming from the far north? In chapters 38 and 39 of the book of Ezekiel, the prophet introduces a mysterious figure known as Gog, who comes from a land called Magog. Alongside these names, Ezekiel also mentions several other regions or peoples including Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal. To modern readers, these names can seem unfamiliar and difficult to identify. But in the ancient world, they referred to tribes, territories, or regions known to people living in the Near East. Over the centuries, historians and biblical scholars have attempted to determine which modern locations might correspond to these ancient names. Some interpretations suggest that Magog refers broadly to regions located north of Israel, possibly in areas stretching toward the Caucasus and beyond into the Eurasian landmass. The city Rosh has been connected by some interpreters to the word Russia, although this interpretation remains debated among scholars. Meshech has often been associated with regions that later became connected with Moscow, while Tubal has been linked by some researchers to the area around Tobolsk in Siberia. Another argument frequently discussed involves geography. In Ezekiel's prophecy, the invading force ni matnamakam lipondilinka upon the uttermost parts of the north. If one were to take a map, one would draw a straight line directly north from Jerusalem. That line would pass through parts of Lebanon and Syria, continue northward through Eastern Europe, and eventually pass near the region of Moscow. Because of this geographical observation, some interpreters suggest that Ezekiel's prophecy may point toward a powerful northern nation located in that direction. Based on this line of reasoning, many modern commentators have proposed that the nation Ezekiel describes could correspond to Russia, a vast country that stretches across northern Eurasia and possesses immense military and geographic power. However, it is important to recognize that these interpretations remain subjects of discussion and debate among scholars, historians, and theologians. Not everyone agrees on how these ancient names should be translated into modern geography. What is clear in the prophecy itself is that Ezekiel envisioned a powerful force coming from far to the north, leading a coalition of nations in a dramatic confrontation with Israel. And according to the prophecy, this northern power would not act alone. A larger alliance would form around it, an alliance that becomes the next crucial element in the unfolding story. In the prophecy recorded in Ezekiel chapters 38 and 39, the northern power described by the prophet does not act alone. Instead, Ezekiel clearly describes a coalition, an alliance of several nations joining together for a common purpose. This detail is important because it suggests that the future conflict would not simply involve one country attacking Israel, but a coordinated effort involving multiple regions. Ezekiel specifically names several ancient territories that would be part of this alliance. For modern readers, these names require interpretation since the political map of the world has changed dramatically over the past 2.5 millennia. However, many scholars and commentators have attempted to identify which modern regions correspond to the ancient names listed in the prophecy. The first and perhaps most clearly identifiable nation mentioned is Persia. In the ancient world, Persia referred to the empire that occupied the territory now known as Iran. Unlike some of the other names in the prophecy, Persia has a direct historical connection to a modern nation. Iran itself continued using the name Persia internationally until the 20th century. Today, Iran plays a major role in Middle Eastern geopolitics, and in recent years, its relationship with Russia has grown significantly stronger. Military cooperation between the two countries has increased, particularly during the Syrian civil war. Russian and Iranian forces have operated in the same region while supporting the Syrian government. Reports have also highlighted cooperation involving military technology, including aircraft systems, surveillance capabilities, and drone technology. These developments have led some observers to see a potential parallel between the modern Russia-Iran partnership and the alliance described in Ezekiel's prophecy. Another region mentioned in the prophecy is Kush. In ancient times, Kush generally referred to areas south of Egypt, often associated with regions corresponding to modern Sudan and Ethiopia. These territories were known in the ancient world for their distinct cultures and long-standing historical connections with the Middle East. In the modern geopolitical landscape, Russia has gradually expanded its influence in parts of Africa, including countries along the Red Sea and in northeastern Africa. Military advisors, diplomatic partnerships, and discussions regarding naval access have all been reported in various African nations. Some analysts believe that these developments indicate a growing Russian presence on the African continent, which has sparked renewed interest in how ancient geographic references like Kush might relate to the present day. The prophecy also mentions Put, another region traditionally linked to North Africa. Many historians associate Put with areas corresponding to modern Libya and surrounding regions. In recent years, Libya has experienced prolonged instability and competing international interests. Various global powers have been involved in the region in different ways, including military assistance, strategic partnerships, and political influence. Reports have occasionally noted the presence of private military contractors and foreign advisors operating in parts of Libya, adding another layer to the complex geopolitical landscape of North Africa. Finally, Ezekiel refers to regions called Gomer and Togarma. These names are often connected with territories located in or around what is now modern-day Turkey and parts of the Caucasus region. Turkey occupies a unique and sometimes complicated position in international politics. It is a member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, yet it has also maintained a working relationship with Russia in several areas. One example that drew significant international attention was Turkey's purchase of the Russian S-400 air defense system. This decision created tension with some Western allies, as the system was developed by Russia and raised questions about strategic alignment. At the same time, Turkey and Russia have cooperated on various energy projects, including pipeline developments designed to transport natural gas across the region. When these various pieces are viewed together, some commentators believe they form a pattern that resembles the coalition described in Ezekiel's prophecy. According to this interpretation, a partnership involving Russia, Iran, Turkey, and certain African regions could represent the modern equivalent of the ancient alliance described by the prophet. Whether or not these interpretations ultimately prove correct remains a subject of debate. However, the idea of a multinational alliance surrounding Israel continues to attract attention among students of biblical prophecy and international politics alike. This naturally raises another question. If such an alliance were to form, what would motivate it to move against Israel in the first place? Ezekiel's prophecy does not only describe who would participate in the future invasion, it also offers a possible motive. According to the text, the coalition would move against Israel in order to seize wealth and resources. The language used in the prophecy speaks about taking plunder and carrying away valuable goods. For much of history, this detail puzzled interpreters. Israel, while historically significant, was not always known for vast natural resources. For centuries, it seemed unclear why a powerful alliance of nations would risk a major conflict simply to capture what was, geographically speaking, a relatively small country. In recent decades, however, new developments have changed that perspective. In 2009, a major natural gas field was discovered in the eastern Mediterranean Sea off the coast of Israel. This field, known as Tamar, contained substantial energy reserves and quickly became an important source of natural gas for the country. Only a year later, in 2010, an even larger gas field was discovered nearby. This field was named Leviathan, and it turned out to be one of the largest natural gas discoveries in the region. Together, these reserves were estimated to be worth hundreds of billions of dollars. The discovery dramatically altered Israel's energy outlook. For many years, Israel had relied heavily on imported energy sources. The country's energy security had often been considered a strategic vulnerability. But with the development of these offshore gas fields, Israel moved toward energy independence. Not only that, but Israel also began exporting natural gas to neighboring countries. Agreements were reached with nations such as Jordan and then Egypt, and discussions about future pipelines connecting Israel to European markets began to appear in policy debates. As a result, Israel began to emerge as a potential energy hub in the eastern Mediterranean. At the same time, Russia's economy has long depended heavily on the export of oil and natural gas. Energy sales, particularly to European markets, have played a major role in the country's economic structure. However, geopolitical events in recent years have complicated that situation. Following the conflict involving Ukraine and the sanctions imposed by many Western nations, Russia's energy trade with parts of Europe has faced significant disruption. European countries have actively sought alternative energy sources, investing in liquefied natural gas terminals, renewable energy infrastructure, and partnerships with other suppliers. These changes have led some analysts to speculate about how shifting energy dynamics might influence future geopolitical strategies. But if energy resources in the eastern Mediterranean continue to grow in importance, the region could become an increasingly strategic location in global energy politics. Some commentators therefore see a potential connection between Ezekiel's description of an invasion motivated by plunder and the modern discovery of valuable energy resources in Israel's waters. While this interpretation remains speculative, it highlights how economic factors, particularly energy resources, often play a powerful role in shaping international conflict. Yet, even if the motive existed, another major factor would be required for such an invasion to occur: proximity. For most of modern history, Russia did not maintain a significant military presence near Israel. That situation, however, began to change in the 21st century. For much of the modern era, Russia's influence in the Middle East was largely indirect. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union supported certain regional governments through political alliances and military assistance, but it did not maintain permanent large-scale military bases close to Israel. This situation changed significantly in 2015. In September of that year, Russia launched a major military intervention in the Syrian civil war. The conflict in Syria had already drawn international attention, with multiple regional and global powers involved in various ways. Russia's decision to intervene marked a major turning point in the conflict. Rather than conducting limited operations, Russia quickly established a sustained military presence inside Syria. One of the most important installations created during this intervention was the Khmeimim Air Base. Located near the Syrian city of Latakia along the Mediterranean coast, this base became the center of Russia's air operations in the region, hosting fighter jets, bombers, helicopters, and advanced air defense systems. In addition to the air base, Russia also expanded its naval facilities at Tartus, a port on the Syrian coast. Tartus became Russia's primary naval foothold in the Mediterranean Sea, allowing Russian warships to operate in the region on a more permanent basis. Together, these two installations marked the first time in modern history that Russia had established long-term military bases in the Middle East. Geographically, Syria lies directly north of Israel. The distance between Russian military positions in Syria and Israel's northern border is relatively small in strategic terms. As a result, Russian aircraft and Israeli aircraft have occasionally operated in the same regional airspace, requiring coordination mechanisms to avoid accidental confrontation. From a geopolitical perspective, this development represented a major shift. For the first time, Russia maintained a direct and continuous military presence near Israel. For observers who study Ezekiel's prophecy, this development has drawn particular attention. The prophet described a power from the far north, eventually moving toward Israel. While interpretations vary, the establishment of Russian military infrastructure in Syria is sometimes viewed as a step that brings that northern power geographically closer to the location described in the ancient text. Whether these events ultimately connect to the prophecy remains uncertain. Yet the changing strategic landscape of the Middle East continues to ensure that Ezekiel's ancient words remain part of ongoing discussions about history, prophecy, and the future. After describing the nations that will form the alliance and the circumstances surrounding Israel, the prophecy in the book of Ezekiel moves toward the dramatic moment when the coalition finally launches its attack. According to the text, the invading force will be enormous. Ezekiel uses powerful imagery to describe its size and movement. He writes that the armies will come like a cloud covering the land. This metaphor suggests an overwhelming military presence, an army so vast that it seems to blanket the territory beneath it. In the ancient world, this kind of language would have immediately communicated the idea of unstoppable force. Large armies were often described using natural imagery such as storms, floods, or clouds of locusts. These metaphors conveyed both the sheer size of the forces involved and the fear they inspired. The prophecy indicates that the coalition will believe victory is inevitable. From a purely strategic point of view, their confidence may seem understandable. Israel is geographically small compared with many of the surrounding powers. Throughout history, the nation has often faced adversaries with larger populations and greater territorial resources. If a coalition of powerful nations were to unite against such a small country, many observers might assume that the outcome was already decided. In Ezekiel's description, the invading alliance moves forward with precisely that kind of confidence. The nations assemble their armies, mobilize their equipment, and advance toward Israel, expecting to seize wealth and territory. The imagery used by the prophet suggests a moment of intense tension. The armies gather strength, believing they are about to achieve a decisive victory. Their strategy appears overwhelming, their numbers formidable, and their goal within reach. Yet, according to the prophecy, what happens next defies all expectations. Instead of witnessing a conventional military outcome, the narrative takes an unexpected turn. The coalition that appeared unstoppable suddenly encounters events that no army could predict and no military strategy could control. At this point, the prophecy moves from describing human plans to describing divine intervention. The turning point of the entire prophecy occurs when God intervenes directly in the conflict. According to Ezekiel, the defeat of the invading armies will not simply come through Israel's military strength or through the strategies of human commanders. Instead, the destruction of the coalition will occur through a series of extraordinary events that reveal a power beyond human control. The first event described is a massive earthquake. Ezekiel writes about a great shaking in the land of Israel. The imagery suggests a catastrophic seismic event, one powerful enough to alter the landscape itself. Mountains collapse, steep cliffs crumble, and structures fall to the ground. Roads and pathways are destroyed, disrupting the movement of the invading forces. In a military context, such a disaster would create immediate chaos. Armies rely on coordination, communication, and logistics. When the physical terrain is suddenly shattered by an earthquake, supply lines collapse and organized formations quickly dissolve. But the disruption does not stop there. The prophecy continues by describing widespread confusion among the invading forces. In the midst of the chaos, the soldiers begin to turn against one another. The text states that every man's sword will be against his brother. In other words, the coalition that had united against Israel suddenly begins to fight internally. Confusion spreads through the ranks. Communication breaks down. Command structures collapse. In the darkness and disorder created by the earthquake, soldiers mistake allies for enemies. Friendly fire spreads throughout the army. History has shown that even highly disciplined forces can fall into confusion under extreme stress. When communication fails and panic spreads, even powerful armies can rapidly lose control of the battlefield. Yet the prophecy describes an even deeper crisis. Disease begins to spread among the invading troops. Ezekiel refers to pestilence affecting the armies, suggesting a sudden outbreak of illness that weakens the remaining soldiers. In the ancient world, disease often devastated armies during prolonged campaigns, especially when sanitation and medical care were limited. But in the prophecy, the outbreak appears to occur alongside the other disasters, compounding the destruction already taking place. Finally, Ezekiel describes what he portrays as a direct act of divine judgment. The prophet writes about torrential rain, massive hailstones, and even fire falling from the sky. These elements combine to create a scene of overwhelming destruction that no army could defend against. Taken together, the earthquake, the internal confusion, the disease, and the violent storm represent a series of events that the prophecy attributes to the direct intervention of God. The result is devastating. According to Ezekiel's account, the invading coalition suffers catastrophic losses. The prophet states that 5/6 of the invading forces will be destroyed. Only a small fraction survives the disaster. This is not simply a battlefield defeat. It is a complete collapse of the invading army. The force that once advanced like a cloud covering the land is reduced to scattered remnants. And the consequences of this event do not remain limited to the battlefield. Following the destruction of the invading coalition, the prophecy describes a profound impact on the rest of the world. The scale and nature of the events surrounding the invasion make it impossible for observers to dismiss what has happened as ordinary warfare. The combination of natural disasters, internal conflict among the armies, disease, and the sudden collapse of a powerful alliance leads many to interpret the event as something far beyond human strategy. According to the prophecy, nations around the world will recognize that the outcome was not merely the result of military power. Instead, the events will lead people to acknowledge the reality of divine intervention. Ezekiel records that through these events, God will reveal himself to the nations. The dramatic defeat of the invading armies becomes a demonstration that history is not controlled solely by human ambition or political power. In this sense, the prophecy suggests that the conflict will serve a larger purpose. It will not only defend Israel but also reshape the way the world understands the role of God in human affairs. Beyond the spiritual implications, the prophecy also hints at significant geopolitical consequences. If a major coalition of powerful nations were suddenly defeated in such a dramatic way, the global balance of power would inevitably change. Alliances might shift, political systems might be re-evaluated, nations would be forced to reconsider their assumptions about power, security, and the forces shaping world events. History shows that major wars often reshape international order. After the First World War and the Second World War, the political map of the world changed dramatically. New alliances were formed, global institutions were created, and the structure of international power evolved. In the scenario described by Ezekiel, the collapse of the invading coalition could have similar consequences. The prophecy does not describe every detail of what follows, but it suggests that the event will mark a turning point, one that causes nations to re-evaluate their place in a world where divine authority has been revealed in a dramatic and undeniable way. For those who study biblical prophecy, this moment is not the end of the story. Instead, it becomes a key step in a larger sequence of events that continues to unfold in the chapters that follow. And according to many interpretations of Scripture, those events lead towards some of the most dramatic moments in the biblical vision of the future. When studying biblical prophecy, many teachers and scholars attempt to place individual prophecies within a larger timeline of events. The prophecy described in Ezekiel chapters 38 and 39 is often understood as one piece of a broader prophetic framework that appears throughout Scripture. While interpretations vary among theologians, many prophecy researchers outline a sequence of major events that form a possible timeline of the end times. The first step in that timeline has already taken place. In 1948, the modern state of Israel was officially re-established. After nearly 2,000 years of dispersion among the nations, the Jewish people once again had a sovereign homeland in the land historically connected to their ancestors. For centuries, such a restoration seemed impossible. Empires had risen and fallen, borders had shifted, and the Jewish people had been scattered across continents. Yet, after the Second World War and the collapse of the British Mandate in Palestine, Israel declared independence on May 14, 1948. For many students of biblical prophecy, this moment represented a remarkable fulfillment of ancient predictions that spoke about Israel returning to its land after a long period of exile. The rebirth of the nation became a foundational event in modern prophetic interpretation. According to many prophetic timelines, the next major step involves the formation of the coalition described by Ezekiel and the future invasion of Israel. As discussed in the earlier sections of this video, some observers believe that geopolitical developments in the modern world, including shifting alliances and military cooperation among certain nations, may be moving in a direction that resembles the coalition described in the prophecy. However, it is important to remember that the Bible does not provide a precise calendar for these events. The prophecy describes what will happen, but not the exact moment when it will occur. As are the events described in Ezekiel, many prophetic interpretations place the beginning of a period known as the Tribulation. According to passages in several books of the Bible, including the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation, this period lasts 7 years. During this time, the world experiences unprecedented political turmoil, spiritual deception, and global conflict. One of the central figures of this period is often referred to as the Antichrist. This individual is described as a powerful world leader who rises to influence during a time of global instability. He presents himself as a bringer of peace and order, but according to the biblical narrative, his rule eventually leads to widespread oppression and conflict. The tribulation culminates in one of the most famous events described in biblical prophecy, the Battle of Armageddon. Armageddon is depicted as a massive global confrontation in which the nations of the world gather for a final conflict. The location traditionally associated with this battle is the region of Megiddo in northern Israel, a place that has historically served as a strategic crossroads for armies moving through the Middle East. But according to the biblical narrative, this final battle does not end through ordinary military victory. Instead, the timeline reaches its climax with the return of Jesus Christ. The second coming is described as a moment when Christ returns to the earth in power and glory. In the biblical vision, this event brings an end to the forces of evil and establishes a new era of justice and peace. For believers, this moment represents the ultimate fulfillment of the Christian hope, the restoration of the world under the authority of God. Another important concept frequently discussed in connection with end-time prophecy is known as the rapture. The word rapture does not appear directly in most English Bible translations, but the idea comes from passages that describe believers being caught up to meet the Lord. One of the most commonly cited passages is found in the writings of the Apostle Paul, where he describes believers being taken up to be with Christ. According to one widely held interpretation, This event occurs before the 7-year tribulation begins. In this view, Jesus gathers his followers, often referred to collectively as the church, and removes them from the earth prior to the period of global suffering described in the prophetic texts. This interpretation suggests that those who trust in Christ will not experience the full intensity of the tribulation period. Instead, they will be taken into the presence of the Lord before the most severe judgments unfold. It is important to note that not all Christian traditions interpret these passages in exactly the same way. Some believe the rapture occurs before the tribulation, others place it in the middle of that period, and some believe it happens at the same time as the second coming. Despite these differences, the central message shared by these interpretations remains similar. Believers are called to remain spiritually prepared and faithful. In many teachings about the rapture, the emphasis is not placed on predicting exact dates or events, but rather on encouraging people to reflect on their spiritual condition. The idea is that life is uncertain and history can change quickly. Therefore, individuals are encouraged to consider their relationship with God and the direction of their lives. For many Christians, the concept of the rapture represents a message of hope. It reminds believers that the ultimate future described in the Bible is not one of endless chaos, but one that leads to redemption and restoration. As we reach the end of this exploration, it is worth stepping back and considering the broader question raised by the prophecy in Ezekiel. Throughout history, many of the predictions contained in the Bible were written thousands of years before the events they describe. Some of those events appeared highly unlikely at the time they were recorded. For example, the scattering of the Jewish people across the nations was predicted long before it occurred. Later, biblical passages also spoke about a future return of the Jewish people to their homeland. For centuries, that return seemed almost unimaginable. Yet in the 20th century, Israel was re-established as a nation. Other passages describe Israel becoming prosperous and secure in its land. In recent decades, Israel has experienced remarkable technological growth, agricultural development, and the discovery of valuable natural resources. These developments have led many people to revisit ancient prophecies with renewed interest. This leads to a question that often appears in discussions about biblical prophecy. If earlier elements of the prophetic narrative, such as Israel's dispersion and restoration, have already occurred in ways that resemble the ancient descriptions, then what should we think about the remaining predictions? If Ezekiel's words were accurate about events that seemed impossible in the past, could the future elements of the prophecy also unfold as described? No one can say with absolute certainty how every detail of the future will unfold. History has often surprised even the most confident observers. But the continued relevance of these ancient texts invites people to reflect on the relationship between history, faith, and the future of the world. And if you find these explorations of biblical prophecy meaningful and thought-provoking, consider supporting this channel. Subscribe, follow, and share this video with others who are interested in understanding the deeper connections between scripture, world events, and the unfolding story of history. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.